You have seen this leaf 100 times without knowing it. It crowns the winners of the Nobel Prize. It rings the heads of emperors on ancient coins. It hides inside the words we use for graduation and genius. And it began with a god, a fleeing woman, and a tree. This is the secret history of the laurel. In the warm hills of the Mediterranean grows an evergreen tree called Laurus nobilis, the bay laurel. Its leaves are dark, glossy, and leathery, releasing a sharp, unmistakable scent when crushed. To most people today, it is simply the bay leaf dropped into a pot of soup. But its story is far stranger than that. For the ancient Greeks, this tree was not ordinary. It was sacred, tied directly to one of their most powerful gods, Apollo, the god of the sun, of music, of prophecy, and of healing. And the reason why begins with one of the most haunting myths they ever told. The story, as the Roman poet Ovid tells it, starts with an insult. Apollo mocked the little god of love, Eros. In revenge, Eros fired 2 arrows. One struck Apollo and filled him with burning desire for a river nymph named Daphne. The other struck Daphne and filled her with total revulsion for Apollo. And so began a desperate chase. Apollo, consumed with love, pursued Daphne through the forest. Daphne, wanting nothing to do with him, ran for her life. As the god closed in and she felt his breath at her back, she cried out to her father, a river god, to save her. Her father answered in the only way he could. As Apollo reached out to seize her, Daphne's skin hardened into bark. Her arms stretched into branches. Her hair became leaves. In the god's very hands, the woman he chased transformed into a laurel tree. Apollo, heartbroken, embraced the tree that had been Daphne. He vowed to honor her forever. He made the laurel evergreen, so its leaves would never wither or die. And he took its branches and wove them into a crown, which he wore from that day on. The tree became his sacred symbol. In fact, the ancient Greek word for the laurel tree was, quite literally, Daphne. The plant carried the fleeing nymph's name. Every laurel leaf was, in a sense, a memory of her. And through Apollo, that leaf would come to mean something extraordinary. Because Apollo was the god of victory in the arts and games, his sacred leaf became the mark of triumph. At the Pythian Games, held at Delphi in Apollo's honor, champions were crowned not with gold, but with a simple wreath of laurel. To wear the leaf was to be touched by the god himself. But Delphi held a darker secret involving this same leaf. Delphi was home to the most famous oracle in the ancient world, the Pythia, a priestess believed to speak the words of Apollo. And according to ancient accounts, before she prophesied, she would chew laurel leaves or breathe the smoke of them burning. Ancient writers believed the laurel opened her mind to the god, sending her into a visionary trance. Whether it was the leaf, the fumes rising from the ground, or pure belief, the laurel sat at the very center of how the Greeks tried to hear the voice of the future. This humble leaf was the key to prophecy itself. From Greece, the power of the laurel passed to Rome, and there it became something even greater, a symbol of raw power. When a Roman general won a great victory, he was granted a triumph, a magnificent parade through the city. And upon his head sat a crown of laurel. The most famous wearer of all was Julius Caesar. He took to wearing the laurel wreath as a mark of his supremacy, and it is how he is still pictured today, on statues and coins across 2,000 years. There was even a belief that the laurel could protect its wearer from lightning, a divine shield fit for a ruler. After Caesar, the laurel became the crown of emperors. Augustus wore it. Centuries later, Napoleon, desperate to link himself to the glory of Rome, crowned himself with a wreath of golden laurel leaves. A simple Mediterranean tree had become the ultimate emblem of earthly power. And here is the astonishing part. That ancient symbol never left us. It is hidden, right now, inside our language. When we call someone a Nobel laureate, we are literally calling them crowned with laurel. The word laureate comes straight from the Latin for the laurel wreath. It goes further. The word baccalaureate, and even bachelor, as in a bachelor's degree, trace back to the same root, the laurel of achievement. When you graduate, you are, in the old sense, being crowned with the leaf of Apollo. In Italy, a graduate is still called laureato and often wears a real laurel wreath. Even the phrase resting on your laurels comes from this tree. It once meant a victor relying forever on a single old crown of laurel, refusing to earn new ones. 3,000 years later, a Greek myth about a fleeing nymph still shapes the words we speak without a second thought. But through all of this glory, the myth, the crowns, the emperors, one question was quietly ignored. Why this tree? Of all the plants in the Mediterranean, why did an entire civilization decide that this leaf was sacred, powerful, and worthy of gods and kings? Was it only the beauty of the myth? Or was there something real inside the leaf itself? For most of history, no one could answer that. The laurel's power seemed purely symbolic, a matter of story and tradition. But modern science has finally crushed the leaf open and looked inside. And what it found suggests the ancients may have sensed something true all along. The secret lives in the leaf's essential oil. When scientists analyze bay laurel, they find it dominated by a molecule called 1,8-cineol, also known as eucalyptol. In some analyses, it makes up more than half of the entire oil. This single compound is much of the reason the leaf smells so sharp and clean. And cineol is not just a scent. It is biologically active. It has been shown to help relax the airways and ease breathing, which begins to explain why a leaf breathed in as smoke might feel like it was clearing the mind and opening the senses. The oracle's trance may have had real chemistry behind the mysticism. Alongside cineol sit other active molecules. Eugenol, the same compound that gives cloves their numbing warmth, which fights inflammation and pain. Linalool, a gentle calming molecule. Pinene, an antimicrobial. The laurel leaf is not a simple herb. It is a small pharmacy folded into a glossy green surface. Take the antimicrobial power. In laboratory studies, bay laurel essential oil has been shown to stop the growth of dangerous bacteria, including Staphylococcus aureus and E. coli. For thousands of years, people used laurel to protect and preserve, and they were, without knowing it, reaching for a real germ killer. But the most striking modern discovery concerns something the ancients could never have measured: blood sugar. And this is where the laurel's oldest reputation as a healing plant meets hard, human evidence. For generations, folk medicine across many cultures held that bay leaf was good for the body's balance, useful against the sicknesses of rich food and excess. It was grandmother's wisdom, and proven, passed from kitchen to kitchen. So scientists decided to test it directly in people. In a clinical study, people with type 2 diabetes were given ground bay leaves every day for 30 days. The results were remarkable. Their blood sugar levels dropped significantly. Their cholesterol profiles improved. A leaf used for flavor for thousands of years was measurably changing the chemistry of the human body. Researchers concluded that bay leaves may genuinely help the body handle glucose, supporting the very kind of metabolic balance that traditional healers had always claimed. The seasoning in your soup, it turns out, carries real medicine, quietly confirmed under modern conditions. And the science keeps going. Studies point to the laurel's powerful antioxidant activity, its anti-inflammatory effects, its support for digestion. Compound after compound, the leaf that crowned emperors keeps revealing that its ancient reputation was not empty myth, but grounded in genuine biology. So we return to the question that has followed this leaf for 3,000 years. Why the laurel? Why did an entire civilization crown it with meaning? On the deepest claim, that this was a plant of real power, worthy of reverence, modern science offers a quiet answer. They were not wrong. The leaf truly is extraordinary. Think about what this single tree has touched. A Greek myth of love and escape. The trance of the oracle at Delphi. The crown of Julius Caesar. The medal of a Nobel laureate. The cap of a graduate. The pot of soup on a winter evening. And inside it, all along, real molecules doing real work. The bay laurel still grows across the Mediterranean, in Turkey, in Greece, in Italy, along the same coasts where Apollo was once worshipped. Farmers still harvest its leaves by hand, dry them in the shade, and send them out into the world's kitchens, exactly as their ancestors did. Most of us drop that leaf into a pot without a thought, fish it out at the end, and throw it away. But now you know what you are holding. A fragment of Greek myth, an emblem of every empire that ever craved glory, and a genuine piece of medicine 3,000 years old. So the next time you cook with a bay leaf, pause for just a moment before it disappears into the pot. Remember Daphne turning to bark in a god's hands. Remember the oracle breathing its smoke, the generals crowned in triumph, the laureates and the graduates. All of it, folded into one small, ordinary-looking leaf. It was never ordinary. And now you know why.